A few years ago, after I'd worked through my own transition, I decided to put together a resource. It was a workbook and a DVD where I'd interviewed 3 men, 3 women, where they told their stories. And then I also interviewed a psychologist and a counsellor who just would give us some advice around that stage of life. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to Alison, who's the psychologist, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, and then we're going to look at the cycle of change. In my mid-40s, I knew that something needed to change. My life was fine by any standard. I had 5 wonderful boys, a husband who loved me, good health and a beautiful home. Nothing to complain about, you could say. Yet I felt sad, lonely and confused. I tried to shake off the chronic feelings of discontent, but I couldn't even identify the root cause of those feelings, let alone deal with them. In hindsight, I now know that this sadness was in fact grief. I was mourning the loss of my role as a mother. At that stage, 3 of my boys had left home and another was getting ready to go. I hadn't expected empty nest syndrome to hit me so badly. I spoke to others, trying to gauge whether this was just me. I found others were also suffering, but no one was offering any answers. I decided to do some research on the subject and was relieved to find out that I was not going mad. I was not abnormal. I was simply experiencing a midlife transition. I spent the next 2 years researching the subject of midlife further, and I found a way to work through my own transition. The biggest issue we face is how to deal with change. For many of us in our 40s and 50s, there's no roadmap as we go through this unknown territory. Added to this uncertainty are the myths and assumptions which still surround the process of getting older. The subjects of childhood, adolescence and old age are all well covered, but there is almost nothing for the midlife age group. GPs provide support for the menopause, but midlife is a far wider issue, and it includes both men and women.
What I'm seeing is a massive pattern of people experiencing at a very deep level an existential crisis. So it's a sense of, who am I? Where am I going? And you know, that you've got to that point in your life. And it's interesting, people come into me and they nearly feel guilty. They're like, I should be happy. I have the family, I have the house, I have the car, I have the great job, I have the great husband. Everything's great on the outside. And I think this is really alienating for people because these are the things they've been working for. These are the goals they wanted to achieve. And then all of a sudden they get to a point and they wake up one day and there's just like a void, a sense of emptiness. And I think sometimes in that void, you know, without a proper internal investigation as to what this actually means to you, it can result sometimes in the experience of panic or anxiety or just being depressed and really sad and, you know, in a sense of feeling lost.
Change is a constant norm throughout our lives, and for all of us it is inevitable. During the course of our lives, from childhood to maturity, we experience many beginnings and many endings. We can't ignore the changes that occur at midlife and think that we can just carry on as before. We need to find ways of dealing with change. Our life is like a story with many chapters, each with a beginning and an end. Our life chapters are linked by transitional periods which act as connections to get us through unfamiliar times and events, where we discover new ways to move into the next stage. The upper part of this cycle is our outer journey into the world around us, where we face external challenges, threats and opportunities. The lower part of the cycle is our inner journey into the world within us, which consists of our core values, our self-esteem and identity. Just like the seasons, this process follows a pattern of 4 predictable phases. The autumn is a place familiar to many midlifers. We can end up trapped in a life which is not wonderful, but which offers us predictability and a measure of security. So a choice has to be made, change or stagnate. This stage of life is different from our 20s and our 30s. This is a time of big questions. Who am I and what am I going to do for the rest of my life? It's very much a time of searching inside. It's an inner process. So this model that I have for you is just a wonderful way of processing that.